Emma had worked at Walmart for 3 years, and the night shifts were her favorite. The store was quiet, almost peaceful. But there was something different about this night. The air felt thick, the silence more pronounced. She shrugged off the uneasy feeling and clocked in. The fluorescent lights flickered as Emma made her way to the electronics section. She was alone in the aisle, or so she thought. A faint rustling sound came from behind the shelves. Emma paused, listening intently. It was probably just a mouse, she reassured herself. "Get a grip, Emma," she muttered, shaking her head. She continued her tasks, but the rustling grew louder, more insistent. It was as if something was moving through the shelves, following her. Emma's heart pounded as she peered down the aisle, but she saw nothing. "Hello?" she called out, her voice echoing in the empty store. No response. She forced herself to move on, stocking DVDs and organizing video games. The sense of being watched grew stronger, prickling the hairs on the back of her neck. Emma glanced up at the security cameras, hoping to spot something on the monitors, but they only showed empty aisles. As she worked, the store's PA system crackled to life. "Emma, please report to the storeroom," a distorted voice announced. Emma frowned. She didn't recognize the voice, and there was no reason for her to go to the storeroom. Still, she felt compelled to obey. The storeroom was dark, the only light coming from a flickering bulb overhead. Emma hesitated at the doorway, peering into the shadows. She stepped inside, and the door slammed shut behind her. Panic surged through her as she tried the handle, but it was locked. "Who's there?" she shouted, her voice trembling. Silence. Then, a whisper. "Emma." She spun around, searching the darkness. The whisper came again, closer this time. "Emma, we need you." Emma's breath came in rapid gasps as she backed into a shelf, knocking over a stack of boxes. They crashed to the floor, and she screamed. The lights flickered, and for a brief moment, she saw a figure standing at the far end of the storeroom. Tall, with hollow eyes and a twisted grin. "Stay away," she cried, but the figure vanished as the light steadied. The door suddenly unlocked, and Emma bolted out of the storeroom, her heart racing. She ran through the aisles, searching for another employee, but the store was deserted. She pulled out her phone to call for help, but there was no signal. Desperation set in as she made her way to the front of the store. The automatic doors were shut tight, refusing to open. She pounded on them, but they didn't budge. Emma turned to see the figure again, standing in the center of the store, watching her. "Who are you? What do you want?" she shouted. The figure's smile widened, and it began to move toward her, gliding silently over the floor. Emma backed away, her mind racing. She ducked into an aisle, weaving through the shelves in an attempt to lose the figure. But no matter where she turned, it was always there, just a few steps behind. She stumbled into the toy section, knocking over a display of dolls. They toppled to the floor, their glassy eyes staring up at her. Emma felt a chill run down her spine as she realized the doll's eyes were following her movements. "Help me," she screamed, hoping someone, anyone, would hear her. But her cries were met with silence. The figure was closer now, its eyes burning with a malevolent glow. Emma grabbed a toy baseball bat from the shelf, brandishing it in front of her. "Stay back," she warned, but the figure continued its advance. In a final act of desperation, Emma swung the bat. It passed through the figure as if it were made of smoke. The figure's grin widened, and it reached out a hand. Emma felt a cold touch on her arm, and darkness enveloped her. Emma awoke in the break room, the harsh fluorescent lights glaring down at her. She sat up with a gasp, her heart pounding. It had to have been a dream, she told herself, a horrible, vivid nightmare. She glanced at the clock. Her shift was nearly over. Emma stood on shaky legs and made her way to the front of the store. The automatic doors opened easily this time, and she stepped out into the cool night air, breathing a sigh of relief. As she walked to her car, she couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. She glanced back at the store and froze. In the window, she saw the figure, its hollow eyes and twisted grin staring back at her. Emma hurried to her car, fumbling with her keys. She got in and locked the doors, starting the engine with trembling hands. She drove away, not daring to look back. The next day, Emma called in sick. She couldn't bear the thought of returning to that store. As she lay in bed, trying to forget the nightmare, her phone buzzed with a notification. She picked it up and saw a message from an unknown number. "Emma, we need you." Her blood ran cold as she stared at the screen. The same twisted grin stared back at her from the attached photo, and she knew, deep down, that she could never escape.